Back in 1943, on this day in the town of Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh, a boy was born by the name of Joseph William Namath, or Joe Willie Namath, or Broadway Joe. And part of his family immigrated from Hungary and came to Western PA, and his family included those like so many around here who worked in the mines and the mills. And Namath was all-world at just about every sport in high school, including basketball, baseball, and of course football. He had numerous offers to join Major League Baseball farm teams, including with his beloved Pittsburgh Pirates. But football was the path, in part because his mom liked the idea of him going to college and getting a degree, which eventually he did, albeit he did it after the age of 60. Now, Namath had many offers from Division I college football programs, including Penn State and Ohio State, Alabama, of course, where he ended up, and also Notre Dame. And he didn't choose Alabama at first. No, he initially ended up picking Maryland at first, but was rejected by Maryland because his College Board scores were just below the school's requirements. Meanwhile, Alabama coach Paul Bear Bryant, he kept at Namath and eventually nabbed him. Bryant later went on record saying his decision to recruit Namath was the best coaching decision that he ever made. And he also, Bryant did, said that Namath was the greatest athlete that he ever coached. So from 1962 to 1964, Namath was at Alabama. They won a national championship. In 1964, he was a first-round draft pick by both the NFL and its rival, the AFL. The two leagues were intense rivals at the time, and they held their drafts on the same day in late 1964. And here's a little bit of trivia for you. Now, we all know that the Jets picked Namath as the first overall AFL selection that year, but which team drafted Namath from the NFL? St. Louis Cardinals. That's the team, and they did it with the 12th overall pick in the NFL draft that year. And here's something that'll make you laugh. Namath's salary request to the Cardinals. So he got, two basically drafted by two teams, the Cardinals and the NFL, and of course the Jets and the AFL. So the Cardinals, when Namath was initially negotiating with them for salary, his ask was $200,000 and a new Lincoln Continental. So here's something even funnier in today's context. The Cardinals, they turned back to Namath and responded to that request and said they'd agree to his terms, but only if he would sign before the Orange Bowl, which would have made Namath ineligible to play in that game, which was going to decide the national championship in 1964. Namath decided to play in the Orange Bowl, and today, of course, is very different with respect to what you see. The best college players today, they sit out their bowl games to focus on the coming money. And after the Orange Bowl, Namath, of course, signed with the Jets in the AFL for $427,000 over 3 years, which was, by the way, a record contract at the time. His Jets teammate Sherman Plunkett came up with the nickname Broadway Joe in 1965 when Namath first appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And in 1965, Namath was AFL Rookie of the Year. In 1967, this is interesting, he became the first quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards in a single season, and he did that in 14 games because they were 14-game seasons back then. And that record wasn't broken or matched until 1979 when Dan Fouts of the Chargers beat it, but he needed 16 games, a 16-game season to do that. Now, Namath's knees really plagued and tortured him throughout his career. He would often, it wasn't sort of uncommon to have him have his knee drained at halftime of a game and then go back in and play the second half. That's what you call tough. But of course, the high point of Namath's career was his performance in the Jets' 16-7 win over the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III, right before the AFL-NFL merger. First two Super Bowls, of course, were blowout victories for the NFL and the Green Bay Packers. In the 1968 Colts that the Jets faced in Super Bowl III, they were touted as the greatest football team in history. Namath got tired of hearing about how the Jets had no chance, and he responded to a heckler at a sports banquet before the big game with the line, "We're going to win the game, I guarantee it." Of course, he backed it up. Namath won the game. He was also the Super Bowl MVP. But those knees, they caught up to Joe Namath eventually, and he retired after the 1977 season. And which team did he retire with? He played his last season with who? Do you know the team? Los Angeles Rams. But then Broadway Joe, he sort of took up his second career after football, one which in many ways seemed even more suited for him than football, which was showbiz. He was on TV, he was in movies, he was, yes, on Broadway, he announced sporting events, He did commercials, including probably his most famous one for pantyhose. Joe Namath made himself into a football great and then a pop culture icon, only in America. Episode 106 is dedicated to Joe Namath.